Do you ever just struggle with making decisions? Or, just choosing an option that you have too many of? Yeah, that's how I feel when it comes to choosing a tarot deck. I'm Damien Miri, and I'm an Omnis magic practitioner who enjoys intuitive readings, and my passions lie in giving digestible advice to making a difference. In this video, I'll be going over 3 tips on tarot beginners and choosing a deck. So before we even start, let's summarize what tarot cards even are. Tarot cards are made out of 22 major arcanas, 56 minor arcanas, and in total 78 cards. These cards may be useful to understanding our present circumstances. In general, they're fun to have, they're fun to read when it comes to trying to make a change for yourself, right? Boom. One more thing. There is a superstition I do have to address, and it's a very popular superstition when it comes to getting your first tarot deck. And that is, should I get my tarot deck from someone who is going to gift it to me, or they have to buy it for me? Which honestly,
no.
That's a load of poop. That's a load of poo-poo.
And then they eat the poo-poo.
Okay, like, yes, that superstition does exist. Though, there's nothing wrong if a person buys you a tarot deck. Honestly, the best thing about that is the sentimental value and that attachment and the amazing feeling you got from receiving that kind of energy. If someone doesn't buy it for you, the cards aren't gonna explode or your messages are gonna be kaput. You gotta remember, you're the reader, and these cards are just tools. These cards are made out of paper. They don't do jack
poo-poo.
Yeah, they don't do jack
poo-poo
unless you, the reader, interprets them. Otherwise, they're just cards, so don't get scared about cards. Seriously, they're just pictures on paper. Alright? So don't get scared of pictures now.
How many people were scared? Me too.
First tip. This one's pretty easy and difficult at the same time, but self-explanatory. Your intuition. That gut feeling. But if you don't know how your intuition is talking to you at this moment in time, here are some tips. Number 1. If you've been seeing this tarot deck for quite some time and it's being referenced to you on the daily, and even if it's not being referenced to you on the daily, maybe give it a week. If you keep seeing this tarot deck, if you keep dreaming about this tarot deck randomly, then that's a really big sign that you should probably get this tarot deck. Like, don't even question it at that point. Other ways to figure out if your intuition is talking to you about getting this specific tarot deck is your 5 senses. So, you could either
Smell it? I know that's weird.
But I don't know, some people could probably smell a specific sensation on a specific tarot deck. You never really know. Number 2, taste. If it gives you a weird taste, and no, I'm not actually literally asking you
to put the tarot deck in your mouth.
Wow. That's gross. I mean, if you see the specific tarot deck and it gives you a feeling or a sensation of a taste, that could be a clue as well as to getting the tarot deck. The next one would be hearing about it. Specific words that reference to the title of the tarot deck that has been trying to speak to you. If any of these line up, your intuition is probably telling you, you have to buy me. Please, I can't make it any more obvious. The other ones is if it doesn't come into those types of intuitions, if you get a sensation of tingling, those feelings, the moment of I just can't stop staring at it, or if you feel like you're getting hypnotized by this specific tarot deck. Kind of like when Ka was trying to hypnotize you in Mowgli. You guys remember that scene? Yeah, if it's doing that to you, chances are tarot deck's probably talking to you. He didn't even have to speak, he just had to stare into your soul. Alright, so tip number 2. This is a more practical way of choosing a tarot deck if you still can't trust your intuition. And trust me, I totally understand. Sometimes my intuition bites me in the booty cheeks.
And it can be fun sometimes.
It's fun and games, but when I do it,
Or not. Anyway, practical ways of choosing a tarot deck is if you can shuffle it. Now, how are you gonna know if you can shuffle it? Now, the average size of a tarot deck is 2.75 inches by 4.75 inches, which is pretty much a 1 inch longer than a playing cards or poker cards, basically. Now, other ways you can do this as well by measurement and seeing if it's shuffleable. I don't even know if that's a word.
Is that a word?
Well, anyway, if it's shuffleable, if you're seeing this in person, is your hand size. And yes, your hand size does matter when it comes to tarot reading.
you're not ashamed of yourself. Are you not embarrassed?
JK. Maybe. Anyway, your hand size is probably very important. No, I'm not telling you to literally size up your hands. You don't need to do that. It's just if the tarot deck can fit between your hands, quite clearly, that's all you really need. That's the proof that you can shuffle it most likely. And in this example, one of the other things you can look into is if you can fit half of the deck in one hand, and then after that, try to bend it or see if it's flexible enough and if you're capable of doing that. If it's flexible and or bendable, that means you can shuffle it easier. And if it's not, you're gonna have a very frustrating time. Trust me. From personal experience, I've bought decks and received decks that I couldn't even shuffle and I wanted to use them more often than not.
Don't.
Because I literally get frustrated and annoyed trying to shuffle the gosh dang thing. One of my examples here is actually the True Black Tarot. And I love this deck for its art, which we're gonna go over art in a little bit, but I love this deck. However, it gives me blisters and it pinches my skin from time to time. And it's really bulky. The card stock on this is a little bit thicker than usual cards. So yeah, if you stack multiple of this deck, it's really hard to bend. So I wouldn't recommend this kind of specific deck for beginners or anything similar to this because you will frustrate yourself enough for you to not want to practice. So try to avoid that. Oh, also for a lot of tarot decks that I struggle with shuffling, I actually practice on my Twitch streams. I stream on Tuesdays and Saturdays, Tuesdays being my game nights, and Saturdays being my tarot readings and spiritual content. So check me out. Now, examples of tarot decks that are awesome at shuffling, I'm actually going to reference the popular Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is usually on a cardstock that is pretty easy bendable and or flexible, whatever word you like, I don't know. And it's super easy to shuffle because it fits, first of all, it fits between my hands and it fits, at least half of the deck fits in one of my hands, and I can also bend it with at least one of my hands, or if not both, derp. That's how shuffling works, right?
Right?
That's how it works, right? And it's super easy to continue this kind of shuffle in a loop or a routine. So yeah, super awesome. And the final third tip is art. The art design. Who would have known?
Duh.
Anyway, the art is really important because it helps trigger your senses, or at least that's usually what tarot cards are. Tarot cards usually give you a sensation when it comes to either color, characters, environment, numerology, and I'm forgetting one. Oh, and words, duh. Out of those things I just referenced, I believe from personal experience, color is super important. Color has a lot of meaning in our everyday lives. Restaurants use them to differentiate a feeling that it gives you, to encourage you to want to buy them, usually. And it's the same thing with tarot cards and tarot decks. It's a little bit easier, once again, from personal experience, to get a specific feeling or a general idea to pop up in my head when I'm looking at a specific color. Heck, it's one of the things you can even ask yourself, how does this color make me feel? and then write it down in a journal or something. Yeah. And the next one I go by is characters. Are there specific characters that make you feel, ooh, that's spicy? Or, I don't like that feeling. You look a little bit stressed in that card, character. I feel it.
I feel the need to say the F word now.
Any of those feelings from a character. Characters represent, guess what? You! The reader! So at times we can be able to project ourselves in a specific character in tarot cards. So if specific characters resonate with you, that's a really good sign. It'll be a little bit easier starting your tarot journey. And then there's the environment. The environment is location and time. It'll help you figure out maybe when this is going to happen. When in the present is it going to be referenced? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Or is it in the evening? Is it going to be tomorrow? Or is it referencing the past? Or is it in the future? Location, location, location. Those are things you can also write down when you're starting off, and also considering to choose a tarot deck if it gives you those types of time frames. The specific locations, like is it in a forest, is it in a castle, is it underground, could also help you recognize a feeling, or it can help you put yourself or these characters that you are reading into that zone. And even ask yourself, if I was in this location in this very moment in time, how would I feel? How would I react if I was in this environment? Because we do that every day. We do that literally when we wake up. We're inside of our room. Usually we're inside of our room or living room, whatever. And usually you have an initial thought. Usually. You have an initial thought about your surroundings. You either like where you are or you're uncomfortable where you're at. Those are some things to think about when you're thinking about art. Now, honestly, in my opinion and in my experience in reading tarot for art, the more optional and extra parts in tarot cards that you don't necessarily need, but they're really nice and just a little bit more of an oomph when you have tarot cards, is if it's numbered or if it has words. Certain numbers do have meanings, like angel numbers, if you've ever heard of that, or numerology. They can have specific meanings that could also trigger you. Favorite numbers, least favorite numbers can make you feel a certain way. And when it comes to words, it can do the exact same thing. Certain words may make you feel a type of way. In general, when it comes to art, make sure that it helps you feel something. Emphasis on feel.
I feel away.
Because everything in tarot cards is going to be super difficult unless you have a specific reaction to it. You specifically have a reaction to it. Not all the time, because obviously you can make it logical. Always ask yourself when you're doing tarot readings, when it comes to art, how do I feel about this situation? How are these colors, these characters, these environments interacting with each other, and how does it make me feel? At least that's a good advice for the start, you know? That's how I did it in the beginning. I just asked myself, like, do these specific characters make me feel a certain way? And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Even if you just think of one word, like happy, joy, sad, depressed, trauma. That's actually already helpful enough. If it gives you those ideas, especially when you're a beginner, that's a really good step. You don't have to overcomplicate it in the beginning. So, yeah. All right, once you've gone through all these tips, I have a bonus tip for you. And that is, in practicing tarot readings for beginners, I challenge you to watch a silent film or watching a show that's super new to you, you're very interested in watching, and putting it on mute. If you can tell and take notes in watching this film or series of whatever the heck you want to watch in mute, train yourself into figuring out if you can figure out what's happening in the show. The best way I've done that is pick a specific character to follow along in the story. right? Once you do that, take some notes and then rewatch that shebang with the audio on. And that specific practice can then be applied to starting out reading tarot without having to read the book. But I'll go over more tips on tarot readings later on in future videos. Those were my 3 tips on tarot for beginners and choosing a deck. Make sure to look down below into the descriptions for my socials and any other bonus content that I create on other platforms. Okay, so you could have been anywhere in the world, but you ended up being here. And for that, I thank you for this blessing. I hope and pray that you learned something new and valuable with us. And overall, I hope you enjoyed your stay. I love you. Mwah! Bye! Okay, so I'll be reading from the book. I'll be doing a bibliomancy reading from Legends of Lower Gods. This is a book about Filipino heritage and mythology, because I am Filipino, and I've been meaning to read this book.